What up, guys? Any-tier guild forever. Well, technically it's any-tier gaming, so it's because it's on my second / gaming channel. This is a donation request from Cody. He wanted me to react to what is known as God dang it! Stop screwing around with me. Freaking align. There we go. React to this, which is Light versus Lelouch. Who would win? Personally, if I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm gonna have to say Lelouch, because I mean, look at the stats. It's Light versus royalty. He has a liberation army. He can control people just by them looking at him. And all Light has to go for is a notebook that can write a person's name, but he has to have an image of the person's face as well as know their name. Lelouch is not going to give his name out to anyone. And even then, Lelouch has like an alias. His alias name, which he didn't mean to initially, is called Lelouch Lamperouge, when his real name is Lelouch B. Britannia. So off rip, Light is not going to get his name right away. And it's not like Lelouch would give his Britannian name just to anyone. So yeah. In my personal opinion, this is a no-brainer. It's obvious that Lelouch would win hands down. I will say though, I'm going to react to this no matter what, but I'm gonna just ask this from my subscribers or anyone that wants to donate. Try not to request something that's from somebody else's channel, because I feel like I'm using their content without permission. It's weird when it's reacting to someone else's content. It just feels weird because I'm using it, and and people can argue, well, it's the same thing for not necessarily, because they put it out there, but pretty much what I'm trying to say is a person made this video, edited or whatever they do on it, and it just feels weird just using their content and passing it off on my channel. I don't know. It just feels weird. I just don't like doing that. So try not to do this from now on. It honestly feels weird to me, but it's okay. I'm willing to make this exception. So yeah. Anyway, let's get to this. Again, I already stated it before this person talks.
It's a topic that's been debated for years now, but today we're going to try to get to the bottom of it. So, who would win in a fight? Light or Lelouch?
Lelouch. Like, hands down, it's Lelouch. God damn, that's loud.
For those who haven't seen Death Note or Code Geass in their entirety, I suggest pausing the video, watching both of those shows, then coming back.
If you haven't watched either, you shouldn't even be looking this up.
Because in order to reach a conclusion here, we're going to have to spoil both of these shows. So with that out of the way, let's look at our fighters. First up is Light, the main character from Death Note. He's basically a hyper-intelligent high school student who eventually comes across a great power that he uses to try and influence and better the world. Now, the item that he finds is the little black notebook called the Death Note, and inside of it, it basically explains that anybody whose name is written in it will die. Plus, it has about 66 rules to it, but that's
66.
Essentially, throughout the course of the show, Light writes down the names.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Just anybody who
I only know the one rule.
In order to make the world
maybe a few here and there, but
wants to be the king of the world. Our next fighter is Lelouch. Basically, he's a hyper-intelligent high school student who one day comes across a great power that he uses to try and influence the world.
Influence, more like manipulate.
Sound familiar?
But at the same time, he's doing it for humanity's own good. He's doing it for the actual right reasons.
He says in the notebook,
plus mechs.
He gets an eye. Well, more accurately, he gets what he likes to call a Geass, which is basically just a superpower that causes people to do whatever he wants when he looks them in the eye and tells them
pretty
to do
much
stuff.
Pretty much
it's mind control. It's basically mind control that people did about
it's mind control.
It's mind control. They do whatever the hell he wants. Mind control, done. And like
right.
the Death Note, there's also a couple rules to it. Now, to me, it seems the reason that people want these two to fight each other or go against each other in some epic climactic
I don't know why people would want to see them fight. It's just
intelligent and a little bit sociopathic. Both of them want to form the world in the image that
really. So you want Lelouch and Light to fight because they both happen to be intelligent and they're both... Yeah, you can say Lelouch is psycho at first, but later and some pretty much more toward the end, Lelouch does change for the better on his own. Light, however, was bitter up to the very end. I don't care what anyone says. If anyone says, oh, he gets some sense of humanity toward the end of the anime, I'm basing this off the manga. And the manga, he was bitter toward the very end. He never learned a damn thing. And in the end, Light died a pathetic death. Lelouch died sacrificing himself for the good of the world. Lelouch accomplished something. He brought peace to the world, or at least to Japan. So, while the main difference between Light and Lelouch, Light loses, Lelouch doesn't. There's a huge difference between those two.
They think is
that's why, in my opinion, that's a bad reason to have them fight, because that's very narrow, a very small reason.
They both die, except for maybe Lelouch, but
Lelouch wouldn't die.
We're not.
If you looked at the end of Code Geass season 2, no, he wouldn't die from that.
Fight. Now, right off the bat, when looking at these two characters, you think they're a little bit too similar, almost the same guy, but really. They're not,
kinda,
because the two of them each operate incredibly differently, and they're both intelligent in different ways. Now, both of these characters have alter egos, but the major difference here is in how they utilize them. Light's alter ego is called Kira, or Killer. He basically works in the shadows and never goes out into the limelight or has any grandstanding gestures. He's kind of the boogeyman. Whereas Zero, Lelouch's alter ego, is the polar opposite. He is in the limelight because he's basically the face of a revolution. Now, right off the bat,
while at the same time keeping himself concealed.
It seems as though Lelouch will have a far more difficult time finding out who Kira is, since he hides in the shadows, than Light will finding out who Zero is, because he's always front and center. But there's also a flip side to this argument, because towards the beginning of Death Note, people start to suspect Light as being Kira. And the way that they go about this is actually pretty simple. They start to pinpoint who's dying and where. Because basically what Light's been doing is he's been watching the news and then killing bad people that he sees on the news with the Death Note. So basically all they have to do
because it shows their
decide
face
where
and
he is
name,
based on what news is
which
being
is
aired
enough
where
to
at what
kill
time.
people.
It gets to the point where halfway through the first season, people are already suspecting him specifically of being the killer. And that kind of falls into Lelouch.
Okay, by the way, I just want to point this out because I feel like I'm not sure if this person is going to talk about it in the video or not. I don't want to hear the excuse of that if Light uses the Shinigami eyes, he beats Lelouch. I don't want to hear that crap, because Light will refuse to use the Shinigami eyes regardless of the situation. Even up to the bitter end, he still didn't want to use the Shinigami eyes because he values himself more than killing the other person. So yeah, he ain't gonna do it. And besides, by the time Light still needs to be able to so even if he has the Shinigami eyes, right, he still needs to take out a notebook or a piece of the notebook and write it down. He still has to write the full name down. And by the time that happens, by the time Lelouch sees him writing something down, Lelouch is smart. He's not stupid. He's gonna understand that he's scheming something. It'll take easily 2 seconds for him to just raise his head up, or even not even that. Just the moment, because look at it this way. Even let's just say Light uses the Shinigami eyes, right? He has to look directly at Lelouch, and Lelouch can counter that by looking directly at Light with his Geass eye. And when that happens, boom, game over. All Lelouch has to do is tell Light to kill himself, and that's it. So I don't want to hear about the Shinigami eyes crap, because that's not gonna work. It's not gonna work.
His wheelhouse. Because two things that Lelouch
that's the
really
one thing people
would
try to use as an excuse.
That's pretty much been displayed throughout all of Code Geass. And this is because Lelouch sees everything as a game of chess. So anything geographical he sees as a battlefield, sees as a strategic location. And any person involved in Whatever he's dealing with is a pawn or a knight or a bishop.
I mean, chess are the foundations of commanding an army.
One of them in any geographic location and pinpoint their
So
exact identity or exact location.
it works in his favor.
Realm of possibility. But that doesn't mean he's going to have an easy time doing it, because Light, theoretically, should be able to find out who he is first. Only not really, because Zero is constantly wearing a mask, and this is very important for this fight.
You can't see his face.
Because Zero's helmet covers Lelouch's entire head, and it seems like it rarely comes off accidentally in the show. So really, the only person who would be able to take it off is Lelouch himself. This would make Light finding out his identity very, very difficult, since he can't see his face. But then there's the argument that he
it's
can
almost
just
impossible,
go to wherever Zero
actually,
is and track him back to his house. But that also doesn't seem very likely. Because
No.
you see, throughout most of Death Note, Light works in a very constricted area.
He works in his
around where he lives and kills people.
his neighborhood. I was gonna say neighborhood.
Pretty much goes all over Tokyo. He goes wherever he's
He's gone overseas, islands,
being able to track Lelouch
many of
doing it,
places.
suspecting that he is Zero, not the other way around. Nobody ever really tracks him as Zero back to being Lelouch. Instead, they track Lelouch until they see him become Zero, and that doesn't really happen. The only case
What
I
do
can
you
think of
mean?
where
I
somebody
don't
actually
understand what he
discovers
says
the secret
there.
via that method is a girl named Shirley, who's tracking him, going, "Is that Zero? That might be Zero." After
The only reason someone found out, she found out, is A, she's close to Lelouch, and B, she knows him.
With his mask off and the rest of his attire on. That's it. So, based on the intelligence of the people going after Lelouch, most of which are nearly as intelligent as him, it does seem pretty unlikely that Light would be able to find out who he is without some help. But let's not undercut his intelligence, because Light is very, very intelligent, easily comparable to Lelouch himself. So, what if he did find him? Let's assume that he does follow Zero and he does find out who Lelouch is and where he lives. At this point, really all he has to do is go around school and ask everybody, "Hey, what's that kid's name?" At which point, the second he finds out, he heads over to his handy-dandy Death Note and jots down the name Lelouch Lamperouge.
Which is not his real name.
That's not Lelouch's name.
Right.
Lelouch's real name is Lelouch v. Britannia, but he goes by Lelouch Lamperouge because he had to kind of fake his own death. And here's where I want to talk about the first clause of the Death Note that matters in this battle. There's a rule in the Death Note that says if a person's name is misspelled 4 times, then the Death Note will not work on them, and you have to assume that Light will mess up at least this one time.
Wait, what? I didn't know that rule.
I'm not undercutting his intelligence here, but look at that name. Just look at that name. I find it...
Yes, that's a long name, but it doesn't matter. Light's intelligent. He's one of the brightest, most promising students of Japan in his story. And yeah, he graduated. No. If you would make a mistake in spelling, then what makes Light so intelligent? What makes him so special? Something like this, considering all his plotting, should not mean he would mess up. No. I disagree with that statement.
Almost impossible to believe that he's not going to try a different spelling of it at least once. But maybe that's just me. Either way, that's a very important clause, because at this point, Light doesn't have to find out who Zero actually is. He has to find out who Lelouch actually is. And that's going to be kind of difficult, because he's actually a Britannian. And if you look at his family, he doesn't look like any of them, except
for the most
his
part.
Mom. You see,
Yeah,
what happened
of course.
is, after Lelouch's mother had been killed, he went after his father,
Lelouch's dad was a man whore.
So his father sent him to Japan and then bombed the shit out of it. So basically, everybody thinks that Lelouch is actually dead, but he's not. And I find it a little bit difficult to believe that Light's going to be able to put that information together in any relevant time. It's going to be pretty difficult for him to figure out that this guy is actually the presumed deceased son of the Britannian Emperor. So right now it kind of looks like things are in Lelouch's corner. Like, he's going to have a bit of an easier time.
Lelouch, it would have been a lot easier if Lelouch at least used a different first name. Which is?
Shinigami.
Oh my god. What did I say? Oh.
Shinigami is basically a god of death, and all Death Notes belong to gods.
He wouldn't use it. He wouldn't use it. He wouldn't.
But essentially, Shinigamis or gods of death have Death Notes, and Light just happened to get one. Now, what's important about a Shinigami's eyes is that they can see how long a person has to live and what their real name is, so they can write it down in the Death Note for when they're gonna die. Now, a human in possession of a Death Note can make a deal to get the Shinigami eyes at the cost of half of their lifespan. So
which he
theoretically, if
Light
got the
wouldn't do.
Shinigami eyes and made that deal, he could just look right at Lelouch, tell how long he has left to live, and his real name, which would pretty much keep him in this fight. But here's the thing, Light never gets the Shinigami eyes. He elects not to. He's offered the deal, but chooses not to because the price is too high.
Like I said, yeah, you will you lose half your life.
But this is a theoretical.
It ain't worth
so
it.
Let's assume that the two did meet up, and Light saw Lelouch is a big enough threat to make that deal. So at this point, all Light has to do is get the Shinigami eyes, sit at home, look at Zero on the news, and write his name down, right? Well,
Nope.
no.
He has a mask on.
As is the way of Death Note, there are rules to the Shinigami eyes as well. You have to be able to see at least 50% of a person's face for it to work.
Oh,
so he would still
not
have to
gonna
figure
work.
out who Zero actually is in order for the eyes to even work. And I know what some of you are thinking. No, he doesn't have to figure out who he actually is. He just has to get the helmet off. But no, that's not true either. Because Lelouch is incredibly paranoid, and underneath his helmet is a mask that covers up to his nose.
Right. Yeah, he does have
rules,
looking like
says
Akashi.
that you have to be able to see from the top of someone's head to their nose, which the mask covers up. So
Right,
even if
so
you believe
it
that
doesn't
he can
matter,
somehow get
yeah.
the helmet off that only Lelouch knows how to get off,
That's
he
not
still
enough.
has to get close enough to get off the mask, and that puts him in Geass range. Now we've talked a lot about Death Note rules. Let's talk a little
I
bit
mean,
about Code Geass.
Light looking at him with the Shinigami eyes would already put him in Geass range.
272 meters, and then he can tell you what to do. And he doesn't just have to tell you one thing. As long as he has that eye contact, he can tell you as many things as he wants, essentially, in whatever time period he wants, and you're gonna do them. He takes complete control, but he can only do this once, meaning the second he breaks eye contact, he can't do it again to the same person. And this creates a
True.
very
He can
innate
only
flaw
do
with
it
the
once
Geass,
per
because
person.
If Lelouch misuses it and does not kill Light with it, then he's done. He can never use it again. Whereas Light has infinite pages in the Death Note, so it kind of seems to be in his favor.
But what does it matter though? Lelouch has the Black Knights. He can just use the Black Knights to kill Kira. I mean, what's Kira gonna do? Oh, he's head of the task force. Oh my god. Like, let's assuming like peak condition Light. He's head of the task force. He's still Kira. He's still, dude. You saw how easily one of the task force members allowed whatchamacallit Nier's group just to investigate Light, because they suspected him, especially after Light's father's death. But the most important thing, look, the Black Knights is a huge army, and the Black Knights have so many influences across the world. Lelouch can legitimately enter the Black Knights with ease, or have his Black Knights coordinated to go in, capture or kill Light, and that's it. It's a GG. Geass or no Geass, Lelouch doesn't necessarily have to be the one to kill Light. He can order his men to do it for him. Easy fix. Easy fix.
And the other important thing about the Geass is you cannot make somebody do something that they are incapable of doing. Basically, you can't make them fly across the sky for no reason. This is going to come up in a minute. Now, theoretically, for Lelouch to win, all he has to do is pinpoint where Kira is, which is the school that they pinpoint with the Kira Kill Force, or whatever the hell it was called, and L. What they pinpoint is his school in his area. So all Lelouch has to do is go between each person in the school completely anonymously and be like, hey, are you Kira? No? Okay, are you Kira?
True.
No, and just go
That's
across the
an
line
easy
until
way
he finds
too.
Light. But Light has a way around that. Very early on in the series, Light is suspected of being Kira by the Kira Kill Force, or whatever the fuck the cops are called, and L. So what they do is they confine him and they question him. And the interesting thing about this is there's
That's
another
true.
clause in the Death Note.
But
except
that's
this one
only
is
if
more
Light
time
knows
space.
that he's
See,
in
what the
danger
clause
of
says
being
is that
discovered.
If he loses possession of the Death Note, basically,
But yeah,
he
that's
will
another
lose
way
all
to get
memory
himself
of
to
having
be.
the Death Note. So all they're questioning, he's answering honestly. He honestly believes
But
that he
honestly
is not
though,
Kira.
why
He has
would
no idea
Lelouch?
who it is because he no longer
Why would
possesses the
Lelouch
Death Note,
use
so
his
he no longer has
Geass
the memory.
to be like,
Which
are you
means that if
Kira?
Lelouch questions him, he can answer honestly.
I
"I'm
think
not
Lelouch
Kira."
could
If
figure
he
it out
knows this,
without
he knows
asking.
that Lelouch is after him. He can do
Lelouch
this
doesn't need to
get
do
around
that. He can figure
Only
it out.
Maybe he can't. This one, admittedly, is a little bit shadier. In a non-canon Code Geass story, it's
That way he
that
can
Lelouch
save
and
his
Geass
actual command for
bring back
kill
repressed
yourself.
memories. Now, this normally wouldn't be valid because it's non-canon, but throughout Code Geass, he never deals with repressed memories. He never tries to bring that back. So we might see in Season 3 that he very well is capable
Season
of doing
3?
it. So based on
What are you
all the
talking
knowledge
about?
that we have, it is possible. It's not necessarily probable, and it's definitely not for sure, but it is possible that even if Light uses that method to lose his own memories and be able to answer honestly that he's not Kira, that Lelouch might still be able to get around that. Okay, so at this point it kind of
I've never heard of
might
that
be in
ability
Lelouch's
Lelouch
favor
has
again,
done.
except they might not be. Because here's something that nobody ever seems to know about the Death Note itself. When a human uses the Death Note, they become possessed by a god of death. The god of death who originally possessed the Death Note. So while we know the Geass works on humans, would it work on a god of death? Because even though the god of death doesn't come out, it doesn't control Lelouch like the exorcism of Emily Rose, it doesn't do anything like that, it's still in there. It's still somewhere in his subconscious. So would the Geass be able to work against a god of death? Well,
Lelouch is human.
You see, late in the series, Lelouch actually uses his Geass on a god during the battle against his father, and it works. Now, this has been hotly debated by fans, whether or not it worked, whether or not he used the Geass, but according to the Code Geass wiki, which is kind of the only relevant source that I have, it seems legit. So, there's really no reason to think that it wouldn't work in Light's world if it works in Lelouch's. So right about now, things are looking pretty bad for old Light.
I guess,
And
yeah,
this is where I wanna go back
that's
to the downfall of the Geass itself. You see, if he uses it incorrectly on Light,
that's an overpowered
he can
eye
never
then.
use it on him again. That's a huge problem. Think of it this way: what if he asks him the wrong question? What if he tells him to do the wrong thing? What if he trusts him? There are 1,000 different ways that the Geass could be used improperly against Light, and
Honestly,
he'd never be able to use it again. But this is also kind of the final nail in the coffin for Light. You see, Light only has one way to win.
I don't think so. I think you just have to ask. You could just have him kill himself. He'll use his own investigation to discover who Kira is. Then just tell Kira, go kill yourself.
By the name of Lelouch v. Britannia. And then, of course, he has to actually write down the name. All of this has to be done in order for him to win. Lelouch just has to kill Light. He doesn't have to do it with his Geass. He doesn't have to make him kill himself with his Geass. He could fuck up his Geass on Light and then figure out who he is and send a militia after him. He could send all
like I said, he can use the Black Knight. Oh shit, all of them. Yeah, Lelouch has a lot of supporters. But I was about to say, like, yeah, Lelouch doesn't need to kill Light himself. He can just send his Black Knights and be like, hey, go kill that bitch for me.
It's going to be much harder for him to find out those things about Lelouch than the inverse. Because honestly, as it seems, Lelouch is kind of tailor-made to go against him. He wears a helmet. He has a mask over his face. His name is hidden. Everything about Lelouch seems to counter everything about Light.
Oh wow, I
His
see
Geass
what you
will
did
have
there.
only one use on Light, can
Magic
be used
the
on
Gathering.
anybody else, and he can use any of those other people to kill Light. And honestly,
Yeah,
at the beginning of
okay.
their series,
No, yeah, I definitely agree
he's
with
a little
that.
bit dumber than Lelouch. He's not as well hidden, even though
No.
he's working from the shadows, and Zero is in the
I don't think
limelight
Light is
all the
dumber than
time. It's a
Lelouch.
lot easier
I
to
just
find
think
Light. They do
Lelouch
it
has more
almost immediately.
resources than Light.
Whereas it takes a hell of a lot longer for them to find Lelouch. And at this point, I assume I'm going to get a lot of people talking about, oh, what about Miso? What about Ryuk? What about Rem? What about the other guy who works for Light at the end? What about all these people that help him out? Well, if you include those people, you have to also include the people who help Lelouch. And he,
Yeah, which is a
basically
lot of
has- and I
influences.
understand that a death god or a god of death, a Shinigami, is super powerful, but the thing is, Ryuk doesn't want to help Light. He only helps
No,
him
he's just
when
a spectator.
It serves his
Right.
purposes, when it helps entertain Ryuk. Ryuk
Right.
has no vested interest in Light. The only reason that Rem helped out Light is because Misa's life was in order. He
Yeah,
had
out of
leverage over
Misa.
Rem, so she helped him out. He doesn't have any leverage over Ryuk. Ryuk
No.
is basically those Michael Jackson popcorn movies. He's just there.
Right, yeah.
He doesn't actually care about who he
Yeah.
is. He doesn't care about Light.
Pretty
As a matter of fact, the devil
much.
itself prohibits Ryuk from helping him. He cannot help him kill anybody. He cannot tell him their real names, and he cannot stop him from dying, or else Ryuk
Oh.
will die. And Ryuk clearly cares way more about
Right,
himself than
he
ever
cares
will
more about his life than
anything,
Light.
including doing his
Light
own
is
job.
just his
Whereas
amusement.
If we included all of Lelouch's people, he has a literal army, along with Mex and Spin Kick Boy and a girl
Right,
that can give
Mex.
Geass to anybody she
Squash
chooses.
that
Oh,
little
look,
shit.
Now he's going
Poof.
against an army of Geass people. Light is fucked. And that's not
Pretty
to say
much.
that Light couldn't win given the perfect circumstances if he found out who Lelouch
Nah,
was.
that's
And
a
if he remained
stretch.
hidden in the shadows and all these
Nah.
other things. But given in
Nah.
even playing field, they're also
No.
pretty even mentally.
I don't see Light
Generally
winning at
speaking,
all.
Lelouch just has
A
more
army,
tools,
bro.
and the tools that he
An
has
army.
counter Lights. That's all there is to it. And here to me is the biggest reason why Lelouch wins, because beyond all of the powers and all of the stipulations, at the end of their series, what happens? They both die. But why do they die? Light dies because he's too arrogant to accept power at a cost. He thinks he can beat anybody without the power of the Shinigami Eyes, and ultimately he dies because of it. Lelouch, on the other hand, defeats the Britannian Empire and unites the world against him. He makes himself the villain and dies in order to unite the world. At the end of the day, Light and Lelouch each have the same goal, but Light fails. Lelouch
Nah, no. I'm gonna stop it right there. Light and Lelouch do not have the same goal. Light and Lelouch, the only thing they share toward the end is that they both die, involving their cause. Light wanted to be the god of this world, the god of the world. That's what he said in episode 1. Lelouch wanted to obliterate Britannia in order to get vengeance for what happened to his mother and Nonali. But then that goal grew into bringing peace, bring peace to Japan. No, like his end goal is to bring peace to Japan. You can say like, oh, but didn't Light wanted to create peace? No, dude. If that was really the case, he wouldn't be killing just random. No, dude. Light wanted to be a god. He's made it several times known that he wants to be a effing god. Lelouch never thought about being a god. I mean, there are moments where Lelouch went crazy here and there, but at the end of the day, Lelouch's goals were consistent all the way through. He wanted to take down Britannia because he felt that would bring about peace to Japan. He wanted to free them. He had a noble cause. Light had a huge ego goal. No, I do not believe they share the same goal.